Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something pretty huge. A listener pointed us to this topic, and it's deeply
It
counterintuitive,
really is. We've got all this research that seems to point to one central paradox.
which is that the obsessive pursuit of happiness, the thing we're all told to do, is actually making people miserable.
Yeah, it's a striking argument. I mean, culturally, we're trained to think that life is this constant search for joy.
Right, the promotion, the perfect vacation, that new phone.
Exactly. But the research suggests that by chasing that feeling, we're actually sabotaging the very thing we think we want.
Okay, let's unpack that right away,
Yeah.
because we're all running towards that next goal, thinking, okay, this will be the key to lasting fulfillment. But when you look at the mechanics of it, that joy, it's temporary by design, isn't it?
Absolutely. The first thing we have to do is sort of reset our definition of happiness.
What it even is.
Right. It's a chemical state. It's dopamine, serotonin. And if your body let that feeling become permanent, we wouldn't survive.
You just sit there, chemically delighted, while the lions circled.
Precisely. From an evolutionary perspective, if an early human felt perfectly content just sitting in one spot, they wouldn't hunt or build shelter or, protect their family.
There'd be no motivation.
Zero. Happiness is a reward signal. It's for completing a task. But it's engineered to be fleeting. Once the reward is gained, the body snaps back to a baseline.
A kind of psychological neutral.
Exactly. To force us to seek the next achievement, the next necessary act of survival.
So if chasing this fleeting emotion is just making us exhausted and, frankly, miserable, then our mission today is simple.
We stop the chase.
We're stopping the chase entirely. We're going to stop running after happiness and start building something that lasts.
Yeah.
We're going to build meaning.
And, nothing exposes the futility of chasing that fleeting reward better than this concept of the hedonic treadmill.
This is such a powerful idea. It's this vicious, invisible loop that I think most people listening have probably been running on their whole adult lives.
Oh, for sure. The examples are just brutal in their accuracy.
Take the new car.
The new car. Perfect example. You worked for it, you bought it, you love that new car smell. It feels incredible.
It's not long.
That high peaks for maybe 2 weeks, a month, tops. Then all of a sudden, it's just your car. It's just transportation. The novelty is gone.
They've adapted.
You've completely adapted to your new normal.
Or the big promotion you fought for.
Mm.
You celebrate. The new title feels important. You're on top of the world for 30 days.
But then the extra responsibility kicks in, the paperwork piles up.
And suddenly it's just your job. And you're already looking at the next promotion.
That's the treadmill. It's devastating because you spend all this energy to move forward, but your emotional baseline just drags you right back to where you started.
It's why the post-vac. So it's this difference between the immediate and the enduring. And the research makes a really important distinction here between the investment for happiness and the investment for meaning.
That is the core distinction. You can think of happiness as cheap.
Cheap. How so?
You can get it instantly. A donut, a video game, scrolling on social media, a glass of wine. It takes almost no effort, and the payoff is immediate.
But meaning is the opposite.
Meaning is expensive. It is not available on demand. It requires struggle. It requires intentional effort. And this is the critical part. It requires responsibility.
It demands something from you.
Something significant. And it usually involves serving something or someone outside of yourself. That price tag, that responsibility and struggle is why so many people just instinctively avoid it.
So the question to pose to you, the listener, is this. Are you confusing a cheap, fleeting chemical burst with lasting fulfillment? If you feel tired or stuck,
Or just endlessly seeking that next hit.
you're probably running on this treadmill.
Yeah. And if that treadmill feels isolating and, a bit purposeless, the next section of our sources gives us this incredible historical lesson, a huge contrast.
Right. To find the antidote to this self-defeating cycle, we have to look to the work of the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl.
His story is, of course, very well known. He survived the Nazi concentration camps, and then he wrote Man's Search for Meaning.
And this is where the analysis moves from, psychological theory to just raw existential necessity. Frankl was observing human behavior in a state of just unimaginable suffering.
And he noticed something profound about who survived.
It wasn't the physically strongest people, and it wasn't the blind optimists, the ones who just kept saying, oh, we'll be rescued tomorrow.
No. The true survivors, the ones who had the resilience to endure that horror, They were the ones who held on to a profound external purpose.
They had a reason to endure the how.
Exactly. Maybe it was a child they had to see again, or a book they had to write, or some scientific work only they could finish. Their focus was fixed externally on their responsibilities.
Not internally on their own suffering.
And this all comes back to a quote from Nietzsche that Frankl used all the time.
He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. That why becomes an unbreakable anchor.
So that raises a really important question for modern life, doesn't it? If that sense of purpose was literally the difference between life and death in a concentration camp.
What does the lack of it do to us when we're surrounded by comfort and options?
Well, the research suggests that feeling lost or empty or burnt out, it's not a deficit of fun. It's not a comfort deficit. It's a meaning deficit.
It's a heavy idea.
Yeah.
That feeling lost is a lack of meaning, not fun. But how do we distinguish that from just, pure exhaustion and burnout?
That's a great question. Simple fatigue gets fixed by a weekend of rest. An existential deficit is only fixed by a shift in responsibility.
A shift in responsibility.
Yes. The sources describe what they call a recipe for depression in modern society.
Exactly.
Waking up for a job you tolerate, to pay for a house you just sleep in, to then watch TV to numb your brain, and then just repeating that loop endlessly.
So you have too much comfort but not enough consequence.
Exactly. And your psyche starts to crumble because it knows its existence has become purely consumptive. You're just trading your time for comfort, but without a purpose for that comfort, the comfort itself becomes suffocating. The human spirit needs to feel needed.
Okay, so how do we operationalize that? How do we take Frankl's insight and apply it?
We have to shift from passively waiting for purpose to actively building it. Because I think the biggest misconception out there is that purpose is something you find.
Right, like a rock in the woods, or you wait for a lightning bolt of inspiration to strike you while you're making coffee.
It is not found. Purpose is built brick by brick.
Ah.
And the most valuable framework the sources offer for this is the Japanese concept of ikigai.
Ikigai. It translates roughly to a reason for being.
Or the value of life. It gives us this beautiful, practical map for integrating all the different parts of ourselves into one coherent mission.
And it's visualized as these 4 overlapping circles.
Yeah, 4 circles. And true ikigai is that sweet spot in the middle where all 4 overlap. So let's walk through them.
The first 2 are probably the easiest. Number 1 is what you love, the activity where you just lose track of time.
And number 2 is what you are good at, your natural skills, your talent.
Okay, simple enough. But the next 2 are where it gets expensive.
This is where the meaning part really comes in. The third circle is what the world needs. This is vital. It implies a service requirement. You cannot achieve meaning in a vacuum. It has to be connected to others.
And the 4th is the reality check.
The big one. What you can be paid for. How do you sustain this mission? Because you can't be very meaningful if you're sleeping on a park bench.
So let's talk about the misalignments, because that's where most of us live.
It is. So if you only have what you love and what you're good at, but no one needs it and you can't get paid.
That's a hobby.
It's a wonderful hobby, but it's financially unsustainable.
And then there's the big corporate trap. What you're paid for and what you're good at, but you don't love it.
That's just a job. You might be rich even, but you'll be profoundly bored. And that boredom leads you straight back to the hedonic treadmill.
And what if you love it and the world needs it, but you're just not good at it?
That's a mission. You'll be passionate, but constantly frustrated by your inability to execute or sustain it. True success, true ikigai, is the fusion of all 4.
Okay, so to speed this whole process up, the research offers a kind of shortcut, a mental shift.
It does. It's about changing the fundamental question you ask yourself.
And that means stopping the, frankly, selfish question.
Precisely. We're all taught to ask, what do I want from life? Which, as we've seen, just leads back to chasing those fleeting dopamine hits.
So you got to flip the script.
You have to flip the script and start asking, what does life want from me? That question repositions you from a passive consumer to an active contributor.
And what's fascinating is where the sources say to look for the answer. They argue your purpose is usually hidden in your past struggles, in your deepest pain.
It's an incredible idea. Your purpose is often to help the person you used to be.
Wow. So if you spent years crippled by social anxiety and you beat it,
conquering that becomes your mission. You become the guide for others trying to escape that same cage.
or if you grew up in poverty and built wealth,
Your purpose is teaching financial literacy. Your greatest burdens, the things that just felt like unfair obstacles, They can become your greatest mission statements.
You're converting trauma into guidance. So what are the results of making that shift? If I stop asking, how can I be happy, and start asking, how can I be useful?
The benefits are detailed beautifully in the research. First, anxiety starts to disappear
Why?
because your focus changes. You are no longer the main character whose performance is being judged all the time. You're the guide for someone else. The stakes become external.
And the fear of judgment just melts away because it's not about your ego anymore, it's about the mission.
Exactly. And meaning becomes the fuel that just doesn't burn out. Working 12 hours for a paycheck is tiring.
Utterly draining.
But working 12 hours on your mission, on your ikigai, the sources describe it as entering a state of flow where you actually gain energy. The work itself becomes restorative.
Okay, this is a heavy topic. We know you can't just figure out your entire life's why during this discussion. It takes real introspection.
So let's talk about some practical tools for that audit and discovery.
The first step is what the sources call a meaning audit. It's simple, but it can be really sobering.
It's just a diagnostic tool, not a judgment.
So here's what you do. Look at your calendar for the last 7 days. For every single activity, mark it with a plus. Plus if it gave you energy, or a minus if it drained you.
And there's a clear warning sign here. If 90% of your went is minuses, you are not living your life. You are trading your life for a paycheck. You're deep in that treadmill cycle.
But this audit isn't a demand to, quit your job tomorrow.
No, of course not. It's a mandate to start planting seeds of meaning.
What does that look like?
Find one thing this week. Just one. It could be dedicating 2 hours to a side project, volunteering, mentoring a junior colleague. The key is to find one thing that is not about you, but about serving someone else. Start small, but start.
And finally, to really force that subconscious purpose to the surface, the sources suggest these challenging purpose map questions.
Right. These are designed to bypass your logical, tired, rational brain.
So here's one. If you had $100 million and you couldn't give it away, how would you spend your Tuesday?
That question removes the need for money from the equation entirely, so it reveals what you truly value.
Or another one, a bit darker but very effective. What is the one problem in the world that makes you the most angry?
Anger is a surprisingly reliable compass for purpose. It points directly to the injustice you feel most compelled to correct. That moral outrage is often the energy that drives the world's great contributors.
So to summarize the core takeaway from this whole deep dive, we come back to a really beautiful analogy.
Yeah, the butterfly. Happiness is a butterfly. If you aggressively chase it, you'll just startle it and it will fly away.
Right.
But if you sit down quietly and do the difficult, essential work of meaning, the butterfly will often come and land on your shoulder.
And for you, the learner, finding your why is the ultimate shortcut. Not just to fulfillment, but to knowledge that actually sticks. Once you know your mission, you know exactly what you need to learn, and everything else just becomes noise you can finally ignore.
Right. And the pursuit of meaning is inherently challenging, which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to explore.
Okay.
You cannot build this new purpose-driven life if you are surrounded by people or by an environment that is anchored only to your old consumption-driven life. Building a mission requires finding a community that supports that mission. So the work that comes next is assessing the environment you need to support this new why.
Food for thought, indeed. That was a deep dive into building lasting purpose. Thank you for joining us.